That's what the blinking and the throbbing was with the screens. Is that it's almost like as if somebody kept on unplugging it and plugging it back in. It was plugged in. Because I know I'm going to get some emails about that. Well, is it loose? No. Well, so I'm going to try to find some things out. I'm trying to see if I can cast it up there as well. But for now, whatever. Anyway, either way, I just wanted to say hello to you all. It's a Friday night. It is the 9th of May, 2025. We have a great show ahead of us tonight. Jay Gulinello is in studio. We'll get to him in just a second. Joining us in a few minutes is Mollee Rucker of KetoBrainz.com. Really enjoyed her as a guest spot. It must have been about a month and a half or so ago. But there's a few things I wanted to bring her on for. Things that Jay and I had spoken about. And I think that she could weigh in on because, of course, like clockwork, whenever I go on Instagram, it matches me with something that we were just discussing. And this happened to be coming from Mollee and Keto Brainz. So that is the whole concept of ADHD. That came up when we were talking about autism a few weeks ago, whenever the hell it was. And ADHD to a lesser degree, but that's something that, everybody, brother, you have ADHD. My brother has been told that he had it as well, does have it, whatever it is. I wanted to talk about it from a couple different angles because the feedback came in from the audience. I thought it was interesting. You're never going to get at everybody seeing it from one angle. And I thought it'd be really good to get it back around to it and then talk about it, especially from a nutritional, nootropic kind of way. I have other things I want to ask. But the other question, one of those questions I want to ask is why did people back 30, 40, 50 years ago look so damn old? And we've had that that's come up on this show before because we watched so much old VHS video. We watched so much candid footage from 7-Elevens in 1987 or proms and all that stuff. And that's one of the things we usually talk about, how mature everybody looks. Obviously, there's the fashion, there's the hair, whatever, but it also just looks like, I don't know, it actually looks like the movie Grease, where you're supposed to pretend that these actors are in high school, but they're really all 32 years old, and But this is something that's actually going around the internet now. It's a good. Let me ask two people who have dedicated their lives to nutrition and optimizing the human body, and perhaps they have some kind of an idea. And then, of course, you guys at home, I want to know what you think. Why did people look so much older 40, 50 years ago? I don't know. I think that the audience should be able to kick in something nice. So those are two main things. Is it all? No, it's never all. And let's get to that, shall we? We will be right back.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay?
I was going to say, I wonder what Jay thinks about this guy.
I like that name.
I don't know.
I don't know why. It's just nice.
It's a strong name.
Yeah. The strongest, actually. But, I don't really have a lot of an opinion. It's interesting to see the opinions, though. I'll tell you that. I've had a good time, because it seems like there's really two distinct schools of thought on this. Although the more I hear, like I listened to you with Rich last night, and he was pretty adamant about it, and
yeah.
I even got to listen a little bit after that. And Timothy Gordon was kind of in line with that, and that's what I've been hearing. One of the saving graces, they said he's a registered Republican, to which I was like, and?
Yeah, I know. What does that mean?
So is Lindsey Graham and Mitt Romney and George W. Bush. Like, who cares?
Did you see what we're already getting prompted by the media to try to expect less from the new budget the new budget because the House is not going to be able to deliver on the cuts that they promised. And of course, we're going to talk about HHS and Surgeon General. And
so I guess what I would say is this too, right? Here's another way I've learned to navigate the world. And the audience can maybe let us know if this is like a viable way of doing this. Sometimes the best thing to do is not react. Like I didn't know anything about this guy. And apparently he was kind of kept to the side. Some would say somewhat intentionally. I thought it was interesting when the fact that he was from Chicago, because of course the first thing I thought was, I bet Obama's hands are in this somehow.
Oprah, Saul Alinsky.
Right. But then I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to wait and see how the media reacts, because if the media fawns all over him as the second coming, then I know he's no good. Yeah. But if the media has a problem with him, then maybe we're onto something. So that's the way I navigate the world now. I just watch to see the media's reaction, and then I go, okay, I'm just gonna,
we'll see in practice. This is one interesting thing I saw. This girl posted on TikTok today. It's already gotten almost 2 million views. This one upload alone. Apparently, back when her mother was 18, 19 years old, she had a dating relationship with Pope Leo.
Oh dear.
Okay. And when they found, because they knew that he's a cardinal now, obviously, what we're getting right now, because he's an American, is all of the reaction of family of the new Pope from home. Reacting that, somebody that you grew up with or somebody that you're related to has done something remarkable.
Yeah.
And they are now in a remarkable position, and they've taken their place in history as well. Right. So that's been fascinating, testimony from his brothers and whatever. But this girl, I guess talking to her mom over the years as she's growing up, her mom probably mentioned, I had a relationship with him, whatever. So she goes and
not every day you can say that.
I know.
I had a relationship with the Pope.
I did. I know. Hold on. She goes and she puts this out here. Listen to this. Hold on. Let me unmute that.
It's Bob. It's Bob Prevost. It's literally Bob.
First of all, they're calling him Bob because this is how he's not. Listen, you're talking about home.
Yeah, I know.
It's Father Bob. When I was in high school, my freshman theology class teacher, she was a nun. In fact, she only died a few years ago. I thought she was in her 90s back then. Her name was Sister Robert, and we would behind her back, we'd call her Sister Bob. But the fact that she's referring to the Pope as Bob, because that's what she knows him as.
That's so great.
Listen to this. She's on a FaceTime with her, I guess, her brother and her mother. All right, here you go.
It's Bob. It's Bob Prevost. It's literally Bob Prevost. Yes. It's literally Bob. Mom's situationship is the Pope of the Catholic Church. Oh my God. My mom hooked up with the Pope.
My mom hooked up with the Pope.
Oh boy.
My mom hooked up with the Pope.
Boy. Well.
Yeah. But again, think about this, Jay. You know how we talk about if we have some information or some experience based on something that we dedicated ourselves to, and we try to bring that information or something to our parents or our close inner circle of friends or whatever, strangers consider what we have to say more than people in our intimate to us.
Yes.
Because they wiped our asses when we were young. All that stuff. I mean, think about these people who know the Pope as Bob his name is
Prevost.
Bob Prevost. Bob Prevost.
Bob, he lived down the street. He used to drive a blue Camaro.
and mom hooked up with him.
Electric blue Camaro. Oh boy. Well, good for Bob.
I guess. Well, anyway, there's that.
Yeah.
There was a raccoon that was found with a meth pipe in its mouth in Pennsylvania.
I thought we were going to say Portland.
No, Ohio.
Oh.
Pet raccoon with a meth pipe in his mouth caught in the eye of an Ohio cop traffic stop for suspended license.
That's a weird story.
Yeah, I was looking at that before. But you know what? We only have 9 minutes before.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I want to talk about this. I really do. I have to put some light on the Quite Frankly Bulletin as well. Real quick on that, ladies and gentlemen. The link to the new Bulletin is in the description of this episode. Krista really did a fantastic job with this. Lauren putting it together and everybody just coming together again with it's a little bit of an altered release date because we had some, regional technical difficulties out there in Pittsburgh. But this was
my grandmother used to call technical difficulties?
What?
Technical difficulties.
Oh, well,
Just mispronouncing it.
That's it.
It's a much funnier word.
I like that, actually. Difficulties.
A little technical difficulty.
But this is such a wonderful edition, ladies and gentlemen. It's great reading for a Mother's Day weekend. I mean, we have contributions from Wendy. We have contributions from Krista. Here's a little bit on me and Lauren and that little baby Aurora do. I mean, there's just great behind the scenes in there. Memorial Day hits and more. It's beautiful stuff. And it's a great alternative to the tiring news. Go ahead and do it. This is this right here is from Tommy Sage, a listener of Quite Frankly, first-time contributor, Knowing Trees. It's wonderful. It's all about the consciousness of trees that you can see come to fruition in the spring season.
That is cool.
So we're definitely going to be pulling from this. That's Chris's father in Vietnam. And so there's Veterans Reflection. And then there's Mollee and Keto Brainz. It's beautiful stuff in
That's
here.
great,
And there's me and Anthony and my mother.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's good.
And this one got me. Quite momsy. Lauren conducted, I don't know who came up with the questions, but Lauren conducted the interview with my mom. I didn't know it was going on. And I just read it last night for the first time. It's very nice, very touching.
Wow.
It got me a little choked up.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah, it's all out there. The link is in the description of the episode. I shared it everywhere.
I love how it's different, like really, really different every month. So diverse with the variety of people contributing to it and timely and very on topic. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it is. I do too. All right. I want to bring this up, and this is going to leave us with a perfect amount of time. Communism kills. Steve on Twitter tagged us both in this, but we already were going to talk about it a little bit. Yeah. Nicole Shanahan, who was the running mate of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. during his candidacy for president, said this. She said, when frontline doctors who gave up their careers, their licenses, and their livelihoods to stand against tyranny during COVID come to me with serious concerns, I listen. We all owe them that. I remain genuinely excited about much of what this administration is doing. It's been bold and it's been transformative, but not every choice inspires confidence. And when I've raised concerns directly and been brushed aside quietly, I'm left with two paths. Stay silent or speak the truth. It's always easiest to sit on your hands and be quiet, by the way. I know this nomination is likely to move forward regardless, but I'm also not going to sit by idly and say nothing. People deserve to know concerns were raised, then will judge for themselves based on the information available and the outcomes that follow. What is this nomination and what's going on, Jay?
Yeah. Man, there's a lot to unpack here, and I know we want to do it in a short time, and maybe it might end up bleeding over because I think the conversation is worth having, but this is the nomination. So the original nomination for Surgeon General, I forget the woman's name. She was a train wreck. You don't need to know her name. She was a believer in everything COVID, all things COVID. It was really quite a nightmare, and she was almost universally panned. I don't really know where that nomination came from, but we were all kind of upset about it because she was a Fox News contributor, I believe, a doctor. But she was on the wrong side of everything historically. And as you know, I'm sorry, but we lived through, for the last 4 to 5 years, the most, like the Super Bowl of health. Like you can say you're a health professional and you care about health, but when COVID rolled around, that was like the Super Bowl, right? That's like if you're the quarterback and you have a great regular season, but you always throw 5 interceptions in the Super Bowl, I mean, what good are you to the team ultimately in the end?
Yeah.
And so when I judge everybody based on what they did during COVID, I think that was the litmus test for true leadership. You know, it's easy now to say, oh, this, that, and the other thing, but what were you doing in the time when what you were saying was incredibly unpopular? So anyway, that was the original Surgeon General pick. I think she was withdrawn 12 to 24 hours prior to the hearing.
And then we get tossed up this name, Casey Means.
Right. And so we've talked about her before. She has been setting the world on fire with her brother, Callie. They've been making the rounds to every major podcast on the planet, between Tucker and Joe Rogan and everywhere. And there's a lot of questions. And let me read you Nicole Shanahan's other tweet because I think that's even more significant. She was responding to Dr. Suzanne Humphreys, who said about the nomination, Dr. Jack Cruz tried to tell us. Mary Talley Bowen was on the podcast too. She knows the deal with Means. Let's see how this all pans out. I can't help but think this is a very carefully groomed and selected person. Just about no clinical experience, talks a great game about everything but vaccines. Feels all wrong. Why? There are so many better choices. And this is where Nicole Shanahan responded. And I think this is what the audience should really dig on. And this is, I'm coming from this point of view where I don't have the answer, but I feel it's my obligation to raise the concern. So here's Nicole Shanahan. Yes, it is very strange. Doesn't make any sense. I was promised that if I supported RFK Jr. in his Senate confirmation, that neither of these siblings, meaning the Means siblings, would be working under HHS or in an appointment, and that many people more qualified would be. I don't know if RFK very clearly lied to me or what is going on. It has been clear in recent conversations that he is reporting to someone regularly who is controlling his decisions. And it isn't President Trump.
Dude, snakes in the grass.
With regards to the siblings, there is something very artificial and aggressive about them, almost like they were bred and raised Manchurian assets. Now, this is going to ruffle a lot of feathers because Casey is quite literally like she presents as the perfect person you would want in any position here. And in reality, the Surgeon General is more of a PR position, and so maybe she's perfectly suited for that. Again, I'm not making a judgment, but what I'm saying is I have had this feeling for quite a while, and we've talked about it on the show. They did come out of nowhere. And if I was going to subvert a movement, I would want to put somebody in there who was very trustworthy, who said all the right things, all the buzzwords, but then, subtly or not so subtly steered you away from something big. And so let me go back to COVID. I scrolled through Casey Means' Instagram, went all the way back to 2018. I went through 7 years this morning. I just wanted to see. She virtually had no following 2018. That's okay, neither did I. Although, I'm not being nominated for Surgeon General. But she also said nothing about COVID. She said 3 things about COVID. I'll take that back. 3 posts about COVID, and they were all about blood sugar, and they were in relation to a company that she either founded or owns or something called Levels, which is a CGM that measures your blood sugar. A valid thing. It's very important. Blood sugar was very important during COVID. We knew that. But I thought it was odd that she said nothing about anything else. Masks, social distancing, gene therapies, lockdowns, nothing. And this is the Super Bowl of health. And you want to be taken seriously as a person now in a public position. Now, maybe she didn't feel comfortable speaking about it. That's fine. But again, you're now being put in a public position. So I want to hear what your stance is now. And going back to something like the Dark Horse podcast, which I brought up last time, Brett Weinstein feels the same way. And he actually invited her on the show and said, listen, the Maha movement is a rebel movement, okay? But it has the potential to be subverted from within. And so we just want to make sure, and I would expect the same thing of me. If I was nominated for something, put me through the ringer. Ask me the hard questions, because I should be put through that ringer and I should be able to answer those questions. And all we're saying about Casey is that she should have to answer those questions as well. And maybe she comes through with flying colors, which I hope is the case. But this is Nicole Shanahan saying this, that RFK, it is very clear, is reporting to someone regularly who is controlling his decisions. Now, that's a pretty bold statement from someone who was his running mate and who would know. So I just want to raise the concern because I know that when I come on this show, a lot of times we're ahead of the curve. We were ahead of the curve with the food compass. That thing appeared on Joe Rogan like a few months after we talked about it. C40 cities, all these things that are important in the health sphere. So I just want to say, everyone loved her book and everyone rants and raves about her. And if she's been on a podcast, everyone's like, look, I interviewed the next Surgeon General. That's all great. But what is the truth behind this? Are they a pair of siblings that just got thrust into the spotlight to conveniently push us all away from all of the disastrous policies and implications of what happened during COVID? I don't know, but it's weird. And Casey, by the way, she's not the first person to talk about all these things either. So don't pretend like she is like the initial inciting voice of like, this is how we're going to make the public health work. Like she talks about the mitochondria. Great. There are tons of people who have been doing this years before she ever did on a public stage. So I'm just saying, I just want to be fair to her, but I also want to say I have a gut feeling and I don't know what to make of it. And I truly don't know what to make of it. I would love to hear what the audience has to say. But after seeing that Nicole Shanahan tweet and listening to her on Glenn Beck, I was like, wow, there is something to this. And a lot of people that know people feel the same way. So it's not just coming out of thin air. Something is strange.
Well, before I defer to our guest that just joined us, let me just say, I don't know. I don't know exactly who they are either. And showing up out of nowhere and not really having a really big social media imprint or whatever, and getting such a prestigious position, even if it is mostly ceremonial and PR, as you were saying, that's one thing. But when somebody like Nicole makes that statement about somebody being controlled and reporting to somebody, that's very, I don't know, that's very Darth Sidious. And I don't. It's very creepy. Hey, Mollee Rucker of Keto Brainz just showed up. Mollee, do you have any opinions on this? I mean, you're in the.
Jay brought it up, and I've had this thought a lot lately, having been in this industry forever. Everything old is new again now that we live in a world of social media. So he's right. None of this is new. The mitochondrial information isn't new. And when I first see this everything old is new again thing, I immediately have a little bit of like anger and ego, and then I check myself and I'm like, okay, I didn't want to be the voice that was out there screaming about this or that. So now we live in a world of social media. So all the shit that I've known, pardon me, for years is now being touted by fancy people. My experience of this personally has been with certain individuals who I still have respect for. Like when Andrew Huberman still popped, I was all over it. And he was brand new, and we would, he'd answer a DM. You could ask him questions. And Gabrielle Lyon, she popped, and same thing. I found her podcast probably before anyone. Reached out, told her what an amazing thing it was. What I have noticed is that humans in this space cease to be human, and they become a commodity, and not necessarily in a bad way, because, Jay and I have a voice. I don't prefer to be out there on camera screaming about stuff, right? So I can't be upset that other fancy people who find the backing and find the money and find the media to do that thing end up with a platform. But to me, without immediately going to the nefarious, because we had apologies, but a crazy hippie dad who apparently was right about all the crazy stuff he told us as kids. So I like to not go crazy first. I like to go with, okay, someone saw a saleable commodity in this human. They looked right. They spoke well. They had the credentials, and whatever we is, whether it's the government or the media or some industry, we need someone to speak to this. And I've just kind of watched certain people go from being people who I thought were brilliant and full of integrity and intelligent become saleable commodities. And in my head, I'm kind of like, well, is it similar to Keto Brainz, where like I knew I had information and a product that would help other people, and I could have just kept that to myself, or I could have done what we did and create a product that people could enjoy. Is it a similar thing on a grander scale?
Yes. And that's the whole thing here is when people are not, and I guess you brought it up there too. I think government is the connecting, is the hub here. That's where the infection really gets, because I mean,
for me, would you prefer the government finding Callie and Casey, like Kyle and I being a brother and sister? We saw Callie and Casey when they first started popping. I was like, yay, another brother and sister who want things to be better. And these guys actually they followed a quote unquote normal path, and they have all of the backing and they have all of the things. It's like, I feel like there's going to be quote unquote like evil, whatever. There are going to be ill intentions at some point with anything when it gets too big.
Absolutely.
But, do we want that going in the realm of, glyphosate is fine, carbohydrates in excess are fine, obesity is fine? Or do we want it going in a direction where someone's telling you, get sunlight, eat real food? So it's like kind of like who's being funded. I'd rather have quote unquote potentially bad people being funded to tell normies to, stop gorging on sugar, than to tell them that living off of breakfast cereal.
You know, you're right. You're picking your battles, and that's really the ultimate thing. I was gonna ask you, Jay, too, as a follow up, is because Mollee brings up a great point. Do you think, is it one of those, obviously wait and see, and sometimes if you wait and see and you see something bad, you wish you would have not waited and seen. But if they go in there and they're pushing a good message across, who cares if they come out of nowhere? If they're following order, like people are just like, what the hell is Marco Rubio doing at state? You know, why are you giving, like, why are we looking at these people? You know, you have one chance, go crazy with the most radical group you can find.
Absolutely.
And the reality is we don't, like, 25, 30 years ago, when I started in this industry and I didn't have a computer, I was going to Copley Library in Boston to Google shit to figure out what was what, right? Now, it is understood. It is understood that you have to have a voice that can reach multitudes. Otherwise, you just have a Jay and a Frank and a Mollee who get weird on fun stuff and go down rabbit holes. But at some point, is it just reality now that we need a mouthpiece that has support from government and institutions and money? Someone that people can get behind, because that's the world that we live in. Who has the loudest voice on X? Who has the loudest voice on Instagram? I don't personally know who watches the news, but I know people do. You still, and honestly, it's nothing new. In every dystopian novel I've ever read, it's been that way forever. Brave New World, 1984, you know, you name it, there's always a mouthpiece. And when that happens, it's inevitably not going to be, either intentionally from the beginning or an accident down the road, integrity gets lost.
I was going to say the same thing, Mollee, and that's exactly why I brought it up. I think it is inevitable when you reach that level. And so the goal of the public then is just to always just be, well, you should never get all of your information from one source, right? But also just to stand guard. And that's exactly why I brought it up, because it's like, listen, we just want to stand guard because all we care about is the truth from our perspective. And I had the same experience that Mollee did about people who were at one point answering DMs. And then all of a sudden, and interesting, it also revolved around COVID. A person who had their account stricken during COVID and they came back, they stopped talking about anything that had to do with COVID. And all of a sudden they had like 2 million followers. And you have to wonder like, I wonder if, you know, they made a deal with the devil. And again, if the message is good, that's okay. But the problem is when people in the social media realm, they tend to just, if they find somebody they like, they will then literally follow them off a cliff. And I just want to prevent the public from following any one person off a cliff, because that would be where that mouthpiece could lead people astray. Well,
and that Jay, to me, gets to this thing, but I'm not willing to be a politician or a martyr. We need to teach critical thinking skills, stoicism, neuroscience, and evolutionary biology starting in preschool. People need to understand this fleshy suit that they're living in so that they can be critical thinkers with anything that comes their way. You know, I have much respect for many individuals that I don't agree with on at least 50% of what they say. And I'm okay with that. I don't have to be in love with everything that comes out of someone's mouth, because no one is going to be in love with everything that comes out of my mouth. So I think that culturally this nuance thing is missing. We no longer know how to like use this, like this sieve, this filter, whereby it's okay to agree with a piece of what someone says and still look through skeptical lenses at other things. And I've lamented that since I was a child. How do you get people to freaking think? And that goes down the rabbit hole of, is one's ability to think genetic? Does it live in our SNPs? Where does it live? Is it nutrition?
This is great. How many people see? And you know, I guess I'd just say Mollee did not have my format or my notes in her.
I know, right?
So, but I will just say thank you for the segue, because this is perfect. Okay, because when we talk about learning, focus, teaching, being teachable, this is a great way to start going into just the more generalized human aspect of this, because Jay and I, when we were together, I think it was back on Good Friday, actually. It was Good Friday, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I think it was on the 18th of April. We were together on the show, and we were talking about what RFK had said in regard to autism. And on that night, in one way or another, we made our way to some thoughts about ADHD as well, and how it's diagnosed, and the prescription for that, how you treat it, and all that stuff. And we were talking about this. And in the 90s, of course, so many kids, and in the 80s too, that's when it really started picking up, were getting on Ritalin. And then Adderall started coming into the mix. And a lot of thoughts came in from the audience from multiple angles. People who are speaking on their own behalf, of saying, I have ADHD. I've been working with this for a while. The others who have it and believe that it's not biochemical and they've just been lied to or whatever. But like clockwork, as I said before, I went on Instagram later on that night, and the first thing I see is a post by Keto Brainz talking about nature's Adderall. And I said, okay, well, I know what we're talking about next time Mollee comes on. So I want you to, just for a little bit, to riff on this before I show you something. It's actually a clip from Rogan, the Rogan podcast. I forget the name of the guest, but it's something the guest said. It's only 47 seconds long. I want to play it in a second, but just from a nootropic, an ingredient standpoint, nutritionally, talk a little bit more about nature's Adderall. How you get down to even talking about that?
Yeah. So to me, it's a big conversation, because a big piece of the conversation before even looking at genetic SNPs, predisposition, diet, or supplementation, we are talking about living in a world where people get diagnosed with a word that then changes their freaking life, usually not necessarily for the better. Because in this industry, people tend to own a diagnosis like, having ADD or ADHD. It becomes an identity as opposed to one aspect of themselves that may be true and correct. And personally, I think that's a huge part of the problem to begin with. But secondarily, there's so much we know and so much we don't yet know about the genetic predispositions and propensities based on various SNPs that people can have. Yep. And, Jay, I know, has, he just had an amazing post on the different MTHFR mutations and how they can possibly affect ADHD. And it's something that I bring up a lot. Like, I have no idea if I have ADHD or not. I don't need to be diagnosed with anything, but I know I happen to have a suite of those mutations whereby my body's inability to convert folic acid into folate then messes with an enzyme that is absolutely essential for the production of acetylcholine, which we talked about last time. You absolutely cannot have focus without. So it's, as with most things, it's not a simple conversation. There are a multitude of neurotransmitters involved. I was listening to something today talking about childhood trauma leading to a brain that was more prone to a state of, a diagnosis of ADD, ADHD. So it's not as simple as you can't sit still, therefore you have X and we give you meth.
Right.
See, okay, so you guys are just right off the bat, because this is how binary this argument gets for people on the internet with many things. Yeah. It's either ADHD is heritable, and it is in some way, there is a biochemical aspect to it. Yeah. Or ADHD is a scam that is behavioral. Maybe it's just rambunctious youth that is it's a pharma scam.
Both. It's both.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. But it's not exactly. It's not a binary. There's so much.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's again that wonderful little critter nuance. It is all of it. Like, number one, we are not meant to sit. Part of our problem as a culture right now is that we sit and look at shit instead of go out into the world and do things with hands.
On blue screens all day.
We're supposed to run around like a crazy person as a child. We're 250 to 300,000 years old, and our genes, like, we're the same thing we were that long ago. We have not evolved past that. We needed to be able to fight and find food and survive as soon as we could walk. So of course we're going to have issues when we sit kids down and say, you can't move for 8 hours.
Yep.
So there's that, just separate from anything else. There's the epigenetic component. So if you are someone with all of the genetic mutations that I have and that my brother has, and you go through your formative years like I did as a fat kid and an obese teenager, and my brain wasn't right, and then I started to discover certain nutrition, and I got all of that in order, I had to find the right epigenetic switches to switch on and off through diet, supplementation, and activity to make my genes, which could be ADD, ADHD, bipolar, and all this other stuff genes, into the best version of themselves. So when people say it's inherited, there's only like 4 diseases that are actually like a death sentence. Everything else has to do with epigenetic switches that you, through how you move through the world, will turn on or off. Sorry.
No. That's great. I mean, Bruce Lipton, I think, used to say genetics loads the gun and epigenetics pulls the trigger.
Yep.
So that's really the way to look at it.
Jay, hold that thought for a second then.
Yeah.
Let's take a listen to this. I don't know. I forget the guy's name.
Oh, I love him.
What's his name?
That's Gabor Mate.
Okay.
It is
Everyone
Gabor,
should
yeah.
read his book.
Great.
When the Body Says No.
Okay, so then here's 47 seconds. I wrote his name down. I lost it, and I thank you for saving me here, Mollee. 47 seconds. Take a listen to him, and then Jay, since you were about to say something, you start first. And I want to hear you guys riff again. Here he goes.
What does it mean?
ADHD?
Yeah, what is it exactly? Is it real?
Oh, it's real. In fact, they say it's the most heritable mental illness there is. But as soon as I learned about the diagnosis, it's not a disease. It's a coping mechanism. If I were to stress you right now, what would be your options?
I could either get upset or I could leave.
Flight or fight, yeah? But what if you didn't have those options?
Then you're stuck.
And now what does the brain do when you're stuck like that?
It gets distracted.
It gets tunes out.
Yeah, it tunes out. You want to do other things, think about other things.
Infants can't help but absorb the stress of their parents.
Right.
They can't help it. But parents are stressed. The child absorbs the stress. What can they do with it? They tune out. And that tuning out thing is programmed into the brain. And then 10 years later or 50 years later, we say, you got this disease. No, you don't. You got a coping mechanism that's no longer working for you.
Coping mechanism. Now, again, I don't know if this is too simplistic, but Jay, we'll start with you. I mean, he says the guest says it's not heritable. Yeah. And that it's essentially a coping survival mechanism, and it manifests as as distracted hyperactivity and confined environments, like, of course, like Mollee said, the standard American school day, versus the mainstream assessment. ADHD is not learned, but it's a result of dopamine dysregulation. So it's got a lot of people split on this, but like you said, there's nuance, and I like hearing about that. So go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the reasons that it's made to be a strict chemical imbalance is because there's profit at the end of that rainbow. You know, that's like the main reason that most things are oversimplified. When we talked last time about autism, same thing. There is absolutely a genetic component and there's absolutely an environmental component. Chris Masterjohn did a fantastic breakdown of that after the episode that we had done on Substack. And after reading it, I was like, yeah, that pretty much confirms everything that I had always read and researched. So I think that's a really important thing. The first time I learned this term, and I'll let Mollee go into the chemical aspect of it, because obviously then, she was so brilliant enough to create a product that could help, with this. But this is the term that I first heard this at the Ancestral Health Symposium in 2018 in Montana. Actually, so it was at Montana State University. I drove there from the East Coast. It was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yeah, and it was. I was listening to George Diggs, who I think he teaches a professor at Texas A&M or Texas somewhere in Texas. Anyway, he brought up the term evolutionary mismatch. It was the first time I ever really heard that term, and essentially that means that our biology has not caught up with our technology, with our lifestyle, with any, our biology adapts over time, and it's usually pretty slow because we mentioned this before, because if it makes a mistake in adaptation to an environment that's not going to be the long-term environment, that can cause problems for the organism. So it really adapts slowly. But when you think about our technology, we adapt like like this overnight. Humans are incredibly good at adapting, but their biology is not. And so I think
So
that's where we are right now. Go ahead, Mollee.
There's a book, and I'm not going to remember the name. Matt Ridley, I recommend everyone read all of Matt Ridley. I do not know if this was his book, but it was originally titled The Tortoise and the Hare. And the premise being that the tortoise was the rate at which we can actually evolve genetically, and the rate at which our society is evolving, and our technology is evolving, and our nutrition is evolving. And he ended up changing the title, I believe, to Nature via Nurture.
Okay.
And it is that whole premise. And believe it or not, I think that book was from the late 60s. I could be messing it up. But to me, that was a massive eye-opener. And what's interesting is that I got sick of California. I got on a train. I moved to Boston when I was 21 on a train, and ended up dating a guy that just like introduced me to all of these different topics that I hadn't really taken a deep dive on. So I ended up deep diving into evolutionary biology in my early 20s. So it was really helpful because it helped me understand some of my biological proclivities. Why did I want to eat that? Why did I want to do that? Why was that person attractive? Why this? Why that?
Yeah.
It gave me a framework and a lens to look at myself, my issues, society, the people around me. It gave me a lens that let me kind of view things through a much better lens where I could remove the emotion from the equation and go, oh, okay, I understand why this is happening over here. And that was way before I read anything about genetics, kind of my first entry into, oh, okay, so I feel this, I can do this input or this input, and based on what I'm inputting into my system, whether we're talking supplementation, diet, or going for a run versus sitting and reading, all of that is affecting now this host environment and how it moves through the world. And again, that's why if I chose to have a giant voice out there, I would be screaming again for stoicism, evolutionary biology, and neuroscience to be taught. Really
Stoicism.
young.
Oh man, we are so on the same page.
But you're right about the education part of it, because we don't have an owner's manual to the human body. And what Mollee is saying is that it puts so much more control back in your hands, which I think is incredibly empowering. Obviously, if you feel in control, you're able to sort of calm the central nervous system a little bit, so the world, when it feels like it's spinning out of control, you have to find those moments of control. And so,
and then, especially with like how crazy the world is, like my framework for everything is one, like, I'm sorry, but we're all the same. We're all shot out of a vagina. We arrive. We don't know. We didn't ask to arrive, right? We didn't ask who we were going to arrive to.
Yeah.
We didn't ask what country, continent, system of monetary anything. We just are here. That's it. You arrive, there's a go button, and you don't yet even have the ability to control your environment until you're much older, right? And so at the end of the day, we all are starting on the same place, and we all leave the planet.
Yeah.
That's it. And in the in-between, we get this special little space to try to build our own manual and figure out how do we move through this space so that we want to wake up in the morning and that we can do something good while we are blessed to have a moment of sentience on this planet as a meat suit.
Yeah.
And we forget all that.
And one of the things that I think that this should tell the audience too is that the body is always responding in an appropriate way to its environment. I think this is really, really important. Like from a clinical perspective, anybody that's worked with me, anybody in the beta program, or anybody that's ever worked with me knows that when I'm analyzing their labs or talking to them about their life, I'm always trying to instill the fact that your body is not stupid. In fact, it's infinitely smarter than any of us. It knows so many more things and is in tune with its environment. So if something is happening that you perceive as negative because it's a symptom or a quote unquote disease that we have labeled, as Mollee said, right? Like it's just got a label it's labeled so that it can have a drug and a milligram dose attached to it. That's why we label it. And then if people internalize that disease, then it becomes them. And then that's a whole other cascade of negative events. But the fact is The body is responding to the environment that it has been placed in, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally, but it is not stupid.
Bad genes.
Right.
Like,
Yes.
your genes,
Yes.
like my MTHFR mutations, maybe my ancestors ate a ton of organ meat.
Exactly.
And my body turned off the ability to
Right.
convert B vitamins because I was getting an insane amount of B vitamins.
It's-
So
And
there's no bad genes.
And
it's
the
just
same
information.
Yes, it's the same thing with like vitamin D. I always use this as an example. My lineage, Mediterranean. So when I'm here in the northeast of the United States, it's a lot more difficult for me to naturally synthesize vitamin D because my ability to convert was likely downregulated because I was being exposed to it genetically, mitochondrial genetics, mtDNA, throughout history. Now, in the northeast of the US, when there's only a narrower band of time and at a completely different latitude, it's just gonna work out differently. So those things matter, and I think that people should understand that when your body is telling you something, you have to figure out what it's telling you. What is it telling you about the environment you have placed it in, the food environment that you have placed it in, right? That's the other thing. We obviously we're big about nutrition here, and we're eating a completely species inappropriate diet on so many levels. And now we're gonna blame the body for the things that we have done to it, right? We've put it in an inappropriate light environment, an inappropriate sleep environment, an inappropriate light environment, an inappropriate food environment. What's wrong with you? Why aren't you working? Try shoving a bunch of crap into your gas tank, and see how far your car is gonna get you.
Nope, it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
Does that, and we can get into some pretty dicey territory here.
Of course.
We really can, because the first thing I thought to myself is, especially when there is interracial marriages, because you're talking about ancient lineages now.
Yes.
Where people are coming from, where DNA, what's written into you has come from thousands of years of everybody being pretty homogeneously grouped in one part of the world and the other, and we are genetically there's so many things that fluctuate and whatever, and so I can see how there can be a lot of problems if people don't know as much as they can about themselves from that kind of heritage standpoint. I don't know. I mean, what you just brought up right there with the way that you metabolize things from somebody whose entire family history grew up around the Mediterranean,
right?
Which I would have to imagine that goes for the same with me, being from the boot. Mm-hmm. But and then you think about somebody from Southeast Asia or parts of Africa, and you're like, okay, there might be a lot of problems here that nobody even investigates because it might seem racist.
It might seem right. There's no value judgment, but go ahead, Molly. There's no value judgment, but it is a biochemical fact.
Knowing the genetics, because there's an argument to be made. I'm sorry, but just look at dogs. Purebred dogs have more issues.
Perfect example.
You kind of want to mix up the gene pool. So I think mixing up the gene pool personally for survival is a good thing. But I think just in a broader sense, whether you can trace yourself all the way back to the original human or you have a really mixed ancestry, we know so little about genetics, but what we know is so amazing. So to me, I know, my dad and, many people I know, they're afraid of the lizard people, so they're not going to get their genetics run because the lizard are going to take the genes.
I want to meet Molly's dad.
The lizard people.
The long story. He's no longer here. It was a pretty tragic existence, but I'm grateful for the genetics.
Well, I love stories about him already.
Yeah.
I'm sorry he's not here, but I want more stories about Dad. But go ahead.
But so to me, I'm like, I'm not going to be here long enough for them to do anything with my genetics, and they're not going to want them anyway. I don't care, but I want the actionable data from what I can derive from what I can know about what is currently known in genetics. And so I'll be listening to Joe Rogan and it'll run out and I'll end up with some random podcast that I'm about to turn off, but it's like a medical mystery podcast. And I start listening to it, and lo and behold, they go through this whole medical mystery and they make it this whole big deal. And finally they got to a practitioner or a doctor who was like, let's check the genetics of this cancer, this disease, this. And there's always more data living there. So I understand people not wanting to have their genome run. I personally think it is so much fun. I've got a text drop of my doc of my entire genome, and I can feed it into whatever I want to get information on a specific SNP when I get curious.
I do too, by the way.
I love it. I love it. But what you're saying, Frank, is huge, because I think people, this whole stoicism thing, I was an accidental stoic. And I think it was because I was introduced to, evolutionary biology at a young age. I don't want to be an unconscious victim of my own neurochemistry. I don't want to be whipped all the fuck around for no reason because this happened and this person did this and oh, my period's coming, but I'm not paying attention, so I feel this. So I value the ability to derive information from what is known so that I can move through the world to the best of my ability, knowing that is I that is making a decision about what I am doing, right?
Right.
So I want to encourage people to understand that there are no bad genes. There's no bad blood. You're afraid to get your blood test. You're afraid to check your hormones. You're afraid to do this. It's information, which is exciting, because if we have more information, we can do a better job of understanding anything. Like, you can layer that on any topic. The more information we have, the more accurate we can be about what the correct next step is.
Okay.
Whether it is politics, government, health.
And let's take that information. No. This is great because that's a good point. That's a great point to link it to what we started with, because we're doing good things with here, because I'm sure a lot of people will start wanting to know. All right, well, how do I get just a basic genetic panel? How do I start building up a dossier on myself like you guys are doing? But since we started with the whole ADHD and how there is this all stuff brings this entire conversation has brought context to what is a very binary and incomplete, food fight between people. It's completely imaginary pharma scam, or there's something here that needs to be unlocked within a person that can be regulated if you understand what you're looking for. So let's just say, let's take a balanced approach to this whole thing and actually use your creation, Keto Brainz, that I love so much. But I'm not, I take it just because I feel the effects, the wonderful balancing effects in my professional life and stuff. But when you talk about this being nature's Adderall, can you guys talk about the components of Keto Brainz in particular and how this can actually plug in missing pieces of what is a little bit more of a delicate biochemical situation when it comes to focus and attention deficit? Like, for example, my brother, I mean, what if you say that something is, if this is only biochemically accurate here, and it's a dopamine dysregulation point that we're a set of facts that we're looking at, then it means that, again, it's questions about our environment. What creates an epidemic level of attention deficit? And then we can individualize it. But still, talk about just Keto Brainz in this, because your post is what inspired this whole talk.
Well, I started looking at it through the lens of, so if it's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, focus has to be involved. And in a certain brain, increasing dopamine, if dopamine is deficient, can be helpful, but dopamine is not the neurotransmitter of focus. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter of motivation. And the thing is you need all the neurotransmitters in balance, right? So if we're just jacking up dopamine, and to be fair, dopamine always feels good. So I don't know, does someone with a diagnosed problem of ADHD just feel better when they have higher dopamine? Is that what's going on? I don't know how to have a full conversation when we're talking about one neurotransmitter, because nothing works by itself.
Exactly.
So yeah. So for me, in looking at a product, I specifically did not add to our product something that would jack up dopamine, because I was well aware that people have all different levels of dopamine naturally. And for me, if I take Mucuna or too much tyrosine or anything that jacks up dopamine, I'm already high in dopamine, and that's not helping me feel more functionally focused, where I do a good job of getting through my day and getting through my work in a way where I feel like that was a great day. I checked everything off my list. I don't feel stressed. Yes, there's more to do, but I'm good. So for me, the alpha GPC was crucial because you cannot talk about focus without talking about acetylcholine, and you can't talk about acetylcholine without talking about the nutritive diet and supplemental factors that are going to boost acetylcholine, which again is our neuromodulator of focus. And then we have to think about GABA. So GABA is crucial for having kind of calm alpha brainwaves. Supplementing with GABA is no bueno. GABA cannot cross the blood-brain barrier. So in my experience, because I've played with high doses of everything, if you take GABA, GABA will stay in the body but not cross the blood-brain barrier. So you can have a really odd sensation of having a calm body, but a brain that is still spinning, which is even worse, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So L-theanine is an amino acid that crosses the blood-brain barrier to help your brain produce more of its own GABA, in addition to taking an anxious, uncomfortable beta brainwave and turning it into a calm, focused alpha brainwave. So just like our brain is not one neurotransmitter, a nootropic should have a nice suite of ingredients in clinically effective doses to bring about a state of, in my opinion, calm, clear focus. And, you know, I had been exposed to many that kind of jacked up everything all the time. So I don't want jacked up serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine, and GABA all at the same time. I want a different product for GABA at night. If I have low serotonin, I want a different product for serotonin. I wanted there to be a product that everyone would benefit from, irrespective of their genetics. We have individuals who have reached out just wondering if it was okay because it felt drug-like to them. To me, that's an individual who has no idea what their genetics are and has been in a state of suboptimal levels of acetylcholine their whole life. So they take Keto Brainz and it feels like a drug because their brain was so desperate for that acetylcholine.
So what you're saying is that we should be that some people are functioning so low that once they get their body is hooked up to something that it's been lacking, it almost feels like they're high and they feel like feeling good is almost abnormal.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And then we have people who
they're
like, it was delicious. I don't know if I felt it. And then they'll reach back out and say, basically, I didn't know what happened. Like last month, I got so much done. I felt so good. It wasn't this super acute, holy shit, my life has changed moment for them. But as soon as they stopped taking it, they realized the impact that it had on their ability to functionally move through their day in a way that was more focused and productive than prior.
That's interesting.
And this is the whole idea of the amazing ability, even to the negative, of the body to adapt to a suboptimal state.
Yep.
That you can survive. Like
the body wants to survive.
Right. And we would never have been able to, in nature, we wouldn't be here if we were in a chronic suboptimal state, because we would have been saber-toothed tiger food, you know, but now we can survive. And so it is interesting when something like what Mollee has created, you know, elicits that response. And you know, just again, I love the theory of providing, you know, sort of precursors or like, you know, foundational elements to functional brain chemistry rather than trying to, my professors used to always say, practice green medicine. Like you see something and you just address that one thing, right? So I went to my biochemistry book from grad school and I just pulled up like neurotransmitter synthesis, and you see something like Mollee mentioned tyrosine. So tyrosine becomes dopa, becomes dopamine, right? But in order to convert dopa into dopamine, there's an enzyme that requires vitamin B6, right? So
and
like
genes involved.
Exactly.
In how well you do that.
So all these things are just interconnected, and it's why when we say genetics, environment, nutritional status, etc., they're all connected and they're all part of the process of how the body works optimally. That's what we mean.
And the tricky thing is, like, even in thinking about making this product, like you know, if it wasn't for Kyle, my brother, who you guys could have amazing conversations with as well, I never would have made the product, because in my mind, which is not 99% of the population, well, they'll just go buy this stuff like I did, and they'll open the capsules and they'll put in their coffee and they'll play with a million different things and they'll overdose themselves and underdose themselves and they'll figure it out. So the reality is most people don't have the time. Most people don't have the time or the desire. And that's good. I need some people to be focused on how to make my car work. I need some people to be focused on, right? So the idea with Keto Brainz was simplifying something that was just a part of my life. And over the years of playing with all the things, figuring out what felt good to the most number of people.
Gotcha.
Like when I had a staff, I would feed them a different beverage that we'll make it someday called the happy drink. And I knew when someone at work needed a happy drink, so I would go concoct a happy drink for them. Or, the whole game was, you're feeling X. Either do you need to go home for the day, or can I help you out a little bit?
Can you start making happy drink packets? Because
so my
send me
man's
one.
sister is a nurse, and that's her request every holiday is for a jar of happy drink.
Jeez, that sounds
I
fantastic.
make her a big jar of happy drink. As we grow more, it's so cost prohibitive to launch a brand new product.
Yeah.
But the point of that was, it's like as you start to understand neurotransmitters and you start to play in that realm more, you can kind of get a feel, without even knowing the genetics of the person, what their core, like some people are serotonin dominant. Those are the people who, I want to say typically female, but it might not be, like people who they love getting people together, right? They want everyone to come together. They've got friends from 5 different states and they want all those friends to come together. They love having people together. And the thing I always remember about that, so I'm going to destroy the story a little bit, but crickets are no different, or grasshoppers are locusts, but they become locusts when it's time to mate. And so they're very solitary creatures. They don't like to be around each other. But then you get these locust swarms because it's time to mate. And what happens? The serotonin in their brains go up by 300%, making them want to swarm and be near one another so that they can mate. So I always think of that when I think of like serotonin dominant people. GABA dominant people, like pretty chill, pretty calm. I'm dopamine acetylcholine dominant, so I'm like this. Everybody's got a different base to begin with, right? And then depending on your upbringing, what your childhood was like, what you ate, and your genetics, your pendulum, like it loses its fulcrum. And I almost feel like adulthood is finding fulcrum. Like adulthood is all about like, how do I get back to baseline? Because if I know what my baseline is, if I have a bad day because my period's coming and I know what's happening, be like, oh, okay, just chill. It'll go away. Things will get better, right? Or you drank too much whiskey. Okay, like I'm not broken. I drank too much whiskey. How do we get back to baseline? So if we can figure out what each of our individual,
Yeah, no, that's it's really well said, and I like that. Yeah,
I mean, it also removes like the pressure for people to have to feel the same way every day, because that's not realistic either.
No, not at all.
It's okay to ebb and flow as long as you're ebbing and flowing. It's like,
oh yeah, I've had a couple of days just in the last couple of weeks. The Keto Brainz was not going to help me. I was not
right, and that's okay, and that's part of life. And because there's just like a drug,
I think of everything in this space: my sauna, my ice bath, my running, my weightlifting, my BPC, my PRP, my Keto Brainz. The more you know, the bigger your toolbox becomes for getting back to baseline quicker. And if something, I think of it as like, it's like you can punch a neurotransmitter system with a drug, or you can tickle it.
Right.
And if you tickle it, you have an opportunity to kind of see like, all right, which of these neurotransmitters has been tickled in a way that is more correct for my life, for what I'm going through. But with the acetylcholine, again, we had, generations of women and men, but women make the babies, who were afraid of saturated fat, and saturated fat is where you're going to get the choline, and the choline is how you're going to make the acetylcholine. And I think that's why so many people do so well with Keto Brainz, is because irrespective of your suite of genetics, you are probably in a place, unless you had a farmer mom that wasn't afraid of fat and got enough acetylcholine. So many people, irrespective of everything else, just haven't had their body saturated with enough of that key nutrient. And I keep talking about the brain, but we are composed of 65 to 90 trillion cells, and every single one of those cells has a lipid membrane, and that lipid membrane can't function properly without choline. Your liver cannot function properly without choline. Your skin cannot function properly without choline. So we're focusing on choline because I have a product that's a nootropic that has it in there for that purpose. but it's a nutrient that is body wide. And even on that topic, if you think about a plyometric activity, you're going to do a box jump, you're going to move weight fast. You need to move fast. When we talk about neurotransmitters, and I am still guilty of it, everyone's seen that picture where you've got the human brain and then you have the whole network of the nervous system. Like neurons are the body. Neurons aren't just the brain. So if we're boosting acetylcholine and we're thinking it's just helping the brain, I loved when I can't do CrossFit right now because of my shoulder, but I loved it pre-CrossFit because quick, fast plyometric muscular movements. So I think that's another missing piece of the conversation, is that no one neurotransmitter is just living up here in the brain meats, because the brain meats are the nervous system meats, and that's your whole body.
Well, yeah. I mean, every couple of years, some scientist comes out and says, "Hey, we found a new bone that we didn't see before."
We're discovering hormones. We're discovering all kinds of things. So to pretend that we have the complete picture is absolutely ridiculous.
We're still in preschool. We're pretty awesome preschoolers, but we're still in preschool.
And then again, every time we talk about stuff like this, we always come back around to education. Yeah, and I know education is a big part of the ADHD conversation there too. But can you imagine if this is what school was really like?
I know.
But okay, so let me ask you this, because we're coming up on the end here. So I wanted to open up. I wanted to open up one more topic that this is going to be big for the audience to call in on in the second half. Well, it is the second half after the intermission. All right, so Mollee and Jay, as I said before, we've asked this question on the show, and the internet asks the collective questions in very cyclical, algorithmically driven ways. Here's the one right now. Wondering why people from 30, 40, 50 years ago looked so much older than today. And it's a little bit strange. Hey, I'm going to play a video for you. We're going to stay. It's from, I'm going to get Jay out of the way over there. And here we go. I'm going to play this video. It's from Instagram, and away we go. So here you go. 29 years old. Why do people today look so much older? Here, watch this compilation.
Why do people today appear so much younger than they used to? The two men pictured here in this photo from the 70s are only 17 years old. This gentleman is 45. He was 21, and these two were 23 and 44. Why did people back then look so much older than people of the same age today? In this film, the two characters are meant to be 45 years old. And in the first season of The Sopranos, Tony is the same age that I am now. So what could be causing this shift in how old people appear? Is it increased sun protection, a decrease in cigarette or alcohol consumption, or just healthier diets? One theory suggests it comes down to hydration. In the 90s, several companies started selling bottled water, and a massive push for people to start drinking water as opposed to sodas or alcohol began to rise in popularity. By 2016, water became the most popular beverage category in the world.
Okay, so they're talking about they're asking about water. I mean, it's going off on their own theories there. But hey, if you guys were to just throw some things out there, and everybody at home start writing down your ideas, because I can't believe that some of those people actually are the way that they are.
I know.
But I've asked these questions because I love watching old prom videos from the 80s on YouTube. It's one of my favorite time traveling exercises. And I think the same thing. And I understand everybody's dressing a lot more modestly. They're dressing like my grandparents in the hair or whatever. But there's more in their faces that says, this is a mom. Oh, no, she's only 17. And it's just, what do you guys think?
Go ahead, Mollee. Do you have any initial thoughts?
I still think it's multifactorial, and the first thing that comes to mind is something that comes from another story we can talk about sometime. An amazing boss who took his own life, but he shared this story with us, and it had to do with the limitations that we have in our own heads. And this story in particular had to do with bench press. And I'm not going to remember the details, but basically, like, for hundreds of years, the most amount of weight that was ever bench pressed was 400 pounds. And we didn't have a World Wide Web to tell us that someone had done it, but maybe somebody heard from somebody that 400 was all that you could do. And then it was 500, and then it was 800. And then as it became easier for information to travel, that such a thing could exist, people's brains opened up to it. Now we have like 1,000-pound
Larry Allen.
press. So I think part of it is this notion, and I have seen this mostly with females, but I remember like before I hit 30 and I was working with people, all the women, they all think they're being helpful. All the women in your life, all your friends, they're like, oh, just wait till you hit 30. Oh, just wait until you hit 25. Oh, just wait until you hit 40. So there's these really strong, so society was stronger, convention was stronger, family was stronger, culture was stronger. So here you have the mom at 16, she had her babies, and she's telling her daughter, you're going to be old if you're not married by 24. So the daughter has it in her head from the time she's a child that she's going to be old by 24. And if she has kids at 29, she's ancient. And you have all these helpful ladies. Oh, just wait till you hit this age. This is going to happen to your skin, and this is going to happen to your cycle. I think that there's a lot of beauty in those tight cultures, but there's a lot that kind of like holds you in. You're supposed to do this by this age, this by this age, this by this age. So you have a really closed circuit game that you're playing as an individual. And then we start seeing like people who decide to do X, Y, and Z to take care of themselves. And then we see what they look like at 29, 39, 49, right? So I think there's that. Clearly more, even though we live in a world where we have too many calories and too much food. I think, you think back to, I was just listening to something talking about the average man in World War II was $120 and 5'8". There wasn't enough food. There wasn't enough nutrition. There was no self-care. Wow. There was no go meditate. There was no stoicism. You needed to not die. You needed to get home, make a baby, and help that baby become an adult who could have another baby.
Hey, but with that said, it seems like, then why is it in the last 40 to 50 years is where we finally found a way to preserve ourselves a little bit more? Because this is like because
life is much less hard. And when you say that, so even, I think Rogan was just talking about it. Like there's very few skinny homeless people because life isn't hard. Being alive. So okay, here's the deal. Not dying before 20 has become very easy. Right. Thriving mentally, physically, and otherwise is a whole new challenge due to this new environment that our genetics don't know what to do with. Sure. And I think that is a part of it. We have all the possible nutrition. We're not going to war. There are a lot of people just sitting inside in front of computers, so their photo aging isn't happening, but they also don't have the weight of a mortgage at age 21 with 4 kids already, like for the most part.
Yeah, they may look younger, but they're, I think, decidedly less resilient in terms, physically, mentally, but also Mollee said something very interesting. And there is a theory out there that any organism retains its telomeres and telomere length until procreation, because essentially the goal of every organism is to propagate the species. And so at a time where we were having kids younger, it was okay for the organism to allow deterioration because it had done its job and is now, baby, wow. You know what I'm saying? So now baby production has been pushed off till later in life. The organism is trying to hold itself together, to prevent entropy in order to save itself for that moment where procreation actually
Holy
occurs.
Shit, that's an interesting angle right there.
Being on telomeres, so the woman who discovered telomerase, the enzyme that breaks down telomeres, one of the initial studies she did was very interesting. She wanted to be able to track telomere length and biological age via telomeres in a very stressed population. So the population she chose were parents of adult developmentally disabled children.
Okay.
So chronically stressed, always worried about what, like, you're worried about what the neighbors are going to say. You're worried if you joke about your kid that you're going to get shit on by people. Right. So she did this thing where she checked all of their telomere lengths before doing this little study, and they were all 10 to 20 years older via the telomere reading than they should have been. And then here's what she did. She got all of those parents together in an environment where it was safe for them to joke about their own lives and kids in a safe environment where they could feel free and stress-free and talk about things in a way that they would not be judged if someone else came around and heard them talk about their developmentally disabled child. And over, I don't know if it was months or weeks, all of their telomeres regressed back to their correct biological chronological age, just because they were given permission to laugh about how horrible their situation was and how wonderful but difficult their children were in an environment with other people that wouldn't judge them. And so the detrimental effects of stress, just think about like conscription, like how stressed would you be? I was listening to something the other day, and it was like a dude who basically from like Vietnam stopped like the week before he was up to go. And this whole conversation was around like what his life was like, knowing that at any moment his number could come up, and his friends are coming home with missing limbs, and his friends are coming home addicted to heroin, and his friends are coming home this and that. And his dad was in World War II. So there was the pressure of you've got to go fight, but there was the I don't want to go and die.
Yeah.
So there's also that. I think the real impacts of stress on the cellular mechanisms of aging, like everyone's like, oh, I'm stressed, I'm going to go to therapy. Dude, no, you're not about to get eaten by a tiger or get your limbs blown off.
Yeah.
That's freaking stress.
In the end, I think you're right, Mollee. I think I come down on the same level of multifactorial. It's a whole bunch of different factors that have led us, to this place. And again, we may look on the outside younger, but in some ways, physically, psychologically, mentally, we're actually weaker. Even if we look
and there's
younger.
just the basic awareness that like, I could, if I do X, Y, and Z, I could very probably be doing CrossFit at 90. Who was thinking that 40, 50 years ago?
Right.
So there's a level of personal responsibility that at least a handful of us on the planet have, that no, we absolutely cannot read the future, but we have enough knowledge to make certain decisions to keep our bodies and our brains and our hormonal systems in order over a lifetime so that we can optimize for lifespan. And, if we get some more years out of health, if we get some more years out of minding health span. So if minding health span starting in our 20s earns us more years on the planet that are functional, like there's more people thinking in that way at innumerable levels, right? Whether it's, it could be anyone. It could be the person who like thinks they're doing the right thing. Like I was when I was 21, like I knew everything because I had emergency and B vitamin tablets in my pocket when I waitressed, and I was vegan, but I also took hydroxycut and drank. So, it's like, it was a mess.
We all had youth. It was.
I haven't heard that term in a while. Hydroxycut. Remember that stuff?
Oh, no. So what about Stacker and Stacker 5?
God, yeah.
Oh my God.
I think that was later because I remember like I lived in Boston and it has to, it was a funny time.
Were you in Boston proper, like the city?
So I lived in Brookline, like outside of Brookline.
Yeah.
I waitressed at, it was a restaurant called Cocapelli's. They were two adorable, chubby little lawyers from Brown University who went on their honeymoon to the Southwest and fell in love with the Southwest and came back and opened Cocapelli's restaurant, right in the middle of Brookline.
Okay.
I'm sorry. My parents were hippies. I'm from the West Coast, but there was like the Jewish mortuary where the men wore like the tires. They look like a fuzzy tire on their head.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So that was right up the street. And then there was like the best Jewish deli across the street. And then there was a macrobiotic restaurant called the Five Seasons down on the corner. And then you'd go into Jamaica Plain.
Yep.
I lived in Malden. That was not smart. That was an accident. I didn't know what I was getting into, but I found a place and I went there.
I'm from there. That's why I asked, because I used to play a bar in Malden called TJ's. So I just was curious if it was a place.
Okay. I think I'm a lot
very
older
small
than
world.
you.
Yeah, very small world.
Lovely party. I wasn't
There
invited.
was a bagel shop there called Love Bagel. Do you remember that?
It sounds familiar. Sounds familiar.
Malden was interesting. No, I had fun. Boston was great. I ran the Boston Marathon as a bandit back when they let you do that.
That's cool.
They don't that was.
You had a mask. You were ahead of your time.
No, I was there right before the millennium. I spent the millennium in the back of a legit old mobster bar on the Italian side of Boston. I was just like, had little blonde pigtails, and they just knew I was from California, so I must know celebrities.
Wow, look at that! You were in the North End.
I was on the North End for the millennium.
There you go.
Yeah,
that
was a good eve. It was. I was in my grandmother's basement though. I was not in. That was that. Well, Mollee, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for everything. And there's bigger things on the horizon. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. But this was fantastic. I hope people, if they have any further questions, they can
reach out.
Reach out.
Any questions you have, we're a tiny company. If you reach out, they'll come to me. And we're also still offering free salty samples with every order for people looking for electrolytes. But beyond that, always happy to try and answer questions if anybody has them.
And there you have it. We'll be doing giveaways and more stuff like that. And as you all know, especially if you're a sponsor of the show already, get in touch with me if you want to try Keto Brainz. I'll send it your way. Mollee, have a wonderful evening and send the best to your brother.
Guys, have a great day.
Yes, keep kicking ass. Thank you.
Bye, Mollee.
Thank you. Bye,
all
guys.
right. Wowee. That's fantastic stuff. And you know what, Jay, before we go on a break, I just want to say real quick, it's a save the date, everybody. It is a save the date.
Oh boy, this is the big thing. This is the thing, right? Are we doing it?
September 6th. There's going to be more coming. An intimate meet and greet event for fans and friends of the nightly talk show in conjunction with Jay and Perpetual Health, a VIP event that is going to be the night before, and the main event that is going to be on Saturday 6th at Garcia's. It's a beautiful bar / nightclub that's attached to the historic Capitol Theater here in Westchester, which will play host that evening to an evening of clean food prepared by hand-picked chefs, an evening of light, audience-driven entertainment to follow, celebrity attendance list to be announced soon too, but I want that place jam-packed with so many familiar faces from the show. And made possible by sponsors like Mollee and stuff like that. So it's gonna be great.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be so much fun. I think it's the details will come because they're still unfolding as we speak. But I think you guys coming to the retreat the last couple of years, and they're going to continue. They're just not going to continue this year for a variety of reasons. I really would love to have a place that I owned by next year, by the time the next retreat rolls around. But this is when Frank and I were speaking, this is the perfect middle ground for that. It's multiple days, 2 days, if you're doing VIP, and we'll explain all this later, but really it's just to get this audience the first chance to be in person. I have been lucky enough to meet a lot of the Franklies in person at their retreats. And now the last couple of years, Frank did too. And now this is going to step that up a notch and allow more people at a cheaper entry level to be able to get in and just have this incredible experience. We are going to do it up for you guys. We don't even know what we're going to do completely yet. We're still batting things around, but save the date, the 5th and the 6th of September in Westchester, New York. It's going to be a blast.
Well, it's also going to be very limited.
Yes.
We're looking at maybe a ceiling of around 160 people. So it's going to go out. It's going to sell out pretty fast, I'm sure. And it's not going to be a night of seminars or anything like that. No. Really, it's going to be a nice meet, greet, and entertainment as well. There's going to be something going on, and it's going to be audience interaction, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And thankfully, we have a few months to plan because this is going to be meticulous. But the great thing is that we already have seen so many great collaborations forming to make September very special. Like, for example, and this is actually born. Lauren spoke this idea out there, and Justin from Yes Cacao heard it on the phone, loved it. Right now, Justin from Yes Cacao is already starting to formulate a special edition chocolate bar
cool.
that combines his cacao with Quite Frankly coffee and the Keto Brainz.
I mean, Frank, so this is amazing. Justin is amazing. Yes Cacao is amazing. I love him. I love the product. The last 2 years, he supported the retreat and created a custom chocolate. When him and I met at KetoCon, which is also where I met, I knew Mollee from Keto Brainz for a while, but we physically met in Texas. And Justin was there, and he kept talking to me about, oh, I keep hearing about, organ meats and all, there's a lot of organ meats around here. And I said, Justin, we, should do like an organ meat chocolate. And we just, we kind of looked at each other and like, can that really happen? I'm like, well, we should do it for the retreat. And I didn't know what was going to actually happen because, retreat got busy. We didn't talk for a while. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, Justin's like, we have a prototype. It tastes fantastic. I'm like, you're doing the organ meat in the chocolate? And he made a his and hers bar. And then last year he made a very specific blend. I mean, it's going to be incredible to experience Keto Brainz, the coffee, and the chocolate. So again, that's just going to be something else totally unique to the event.
What he made, the his and hers bars he made for the 2023 retreat was actually, and I love most of what he does, but that was the best chocolatey tasting one I've ever tasted. And
it was like the men's version had liver, had all the typical, and then but it also had testicle and something else, and then the
testicle, heart, and
liver. I think
liver. Did it have prostate?
Maybe. And the female one had uterus and all
fallopian
that stuff.
Tube.
Yeah.
It had fallopian tube.
And you might think like that's crazy, but no, I mean it's not. It's that's the way like Native Americans used to eat. They believed that eating the organ of the animal that if you were struggling with liver, you would eat liver and it makes sense because the liver contains those nutrients, and so the animal would be able to supercharge you with the nutrients to try to bring that organ back to health. That's like an ancient Native American way of looking at health, but very cool. And so whatever Justin comes up with is going to be fantastic because he's literally never disappointed. So shout out to you if you're listening, Justin. I absolutely love this idea. Thank you, Lauren, for planting the seed. That's going to be a lot of fun too.
Well, anyway, more on that. We just wanted to say there's going to be a save the date, and also whenever tickets finally do go available, which should happen in the coming weeks, monthly sponsors will have at least a couple of days to get in there and swipe them up first because it's going to be very, very limited. Yeah. And of course, this is it's a prototype event because I finally feel comfortable doing something in public.
Yeah, and and if this goes well, Frank, I agree with you. This is the prototype event that could be, once
theaters.
a year, a couple of times a year.
And in a theater.
Yeah.
We're going to move to the theater.
So don't feel bad if you can't get in. It's like the retreat. When we close it out at 30, I feel so bad for people. And when this closes out at whatever number, people are going to be upset they can't come, but it's only the beginning. So just think of it that way.
Absolutely. It's a new leaf. Okay, you know what? To hell with the intermission. Take a look at this. Here's another one. This guy put out he's asking about why people look, he's looking at a 1981 Penn State football team. And these are supposed to be 17 and 18-year-old kids, okay?
You sent me this.
Yeah,
that's really funny.
I love the reaction of this guy. Take a listen.
I'm going to show you the 1981 Penn State football team, and they genuinely look like they're 30 years old. And it just progressively gets worse, or they look older. So we got Michael right here. He looks like he could be someone's dad, and this dude looks like he could be an uncle. Honestly, he looks like he should be on Dexter's list. He looks like a killer. All right, next we got, he literally looks like a teacher. Look at him. He's supposed to be my age.
What the comment says, they all look like managers at a car dealership.
Look at their necks.
I look like I could be his son or his adopted son. This dude, he actually, Black Don't Crack, he actually kind of looks like he could be 20. He looks like he's 50. Not 35. Bro, this dude looks like he could be 50. No troll. No.
Paul Bearer up there.
Yeah.
What is that? I'm not even trying to be disrespectful, gang. What do they look like today? Look at these people. Look at their necks. All right, they kind of look like they could be their age. I'll let this one slide, but they look kind of old. I'm just looking at their neck. And this image is kind of strange. Also, he looks like a baby, but a grown man, and he looks like he could be my teacher.
Oh God, that's good. It is weird.
It needs to be figured out. You know what? I want to get some calls in this.
Yeah.
914-200-0269. Call in. Let me know what you think. But what you and Mollee have already thrown into the mix, that's the telomere thing. Very interesting, especially since everybody's pushing back parenthood for one reason or another. But then there is also the sex hormone crisis. I mean, we're talking about a plummeting of sex hormones.
Yep.
So yeah, we're being preserved, but could those guys have looked that way back then? And does everybody look the way they do in a prom video in 1985 because there's just more testosterone? Or like, can that be how big of a?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a factor. And remember, we're always looking at a subset of the population. So I'm sure there were people, like if you were able to get in a time machine and go back, I'm sure you would find people that were, that were older that looked younger, So I'm sure it was a mixed match. And I think when we see these things, a lot of times we're doing a little bit of cherry picking of the people that are like really shocking. It's definitely a phenomenon. Don't get me wrong. I completely agree. But I think, I do think the testosterone does play a role in that too.
Here's a comment about this. It's all because we mature psychologically much later nowadays. Our fathers and mothers already felt like adults by age 17.
Yeah.
There was a need to find a spouse and have children before 22. Men were working by 22, taking out mortgages, and by 25 to 27, they already had huge responsibilities. But now we're just easing into life by the age of 30, trying to avoid a responsibility and putting off having kids. This is a Gen Z speaking, I guess. Putting off having kids because objectively speaking, life has become about twice as expensive since those times. In short, the world has changed. Most likely our generation will live to be 100 years old on average. I don't think so.
No, I mean, our life expectancy is plummeting.
We're going back.
Yeah, it's not gonna benefit us on that. That's what I mean. Like, I don't think it's actually gonna benefit us on the tail end, unless you are one of those people who is leveraging that. In other words, to go back to the beginning, the Maha movement, right? There are things you can do. Absolutely. You don't have to be some crazy Brian Johnson faux biohacker, I'm going to live forever kind of guy. But there's a lot of legitimate things you can do in that biology hacking space in order to help improve that. So yeah, I think there's definitely some people will live longer and will live more functionally longer. But other people, just because the physical signs of aging have been delayed does not necessarily mean you're going to get the benefit on the back end.
Yeah. Well, let's go to the super chats. Let's see here. Over on Rumble, we got a few in there. Rumble says, "Hey, would you blow me?" Says, "Wow, I just think I just fell in love with her dad." Let's see. Icebox87. Hello, gifted 5 subscriptions to Quite Frankly. Look at that. Cool. Thank you so much, Icebox. It's the second time he's done that. Big Chief Patriot says, "Could Mollee recommend some good literature on Stoicism?" Oh, here's one.
Is that Meditations? Yeah,
Meditations right there.
I have that in my living room.
Oh, here's a really good one for you to start, Big Chief. The book is called How to Think Like a Roman Emperor.
Ooh.
Forget the author's name, but just look at the title. How to Think Like a Roman Emperor. It was written by this guy. The author was having these big transitional issues. And I think his parents, he had a lot of, death and just a lot of shakeup in his life and whatever. And it was all about his story of finding Stoicism by just escaping into books and philosophy. And it's fantastic. I actually read it again. It's nice. So I would say that's a good way to take a look at it. Jay Semo says, "Pretty heavy show for a Friday. Lots to think about."
It was not meant to be that way.
Yeah, lots to think about. I love it. Have a great weekend. Well, to me, it's a good kind of heavy. At least when I talk about serial killers and whatever. But this, the whole idea of unlocking. I love unlocking secrets of the universe, and when you think about the kind of information that's stored just within our DNA, it's essentially a universe worth of information. And so little is really understood about it at this point that I just like sitting back and listening to it.
Mollee had said something interesting. I found the quote. I was searching for it in my mind, and I knew it was Aristotle, but I couldn't formulate the quote, but I found it. So, "It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it." And that goes back to that idea of educating kids, right? Like, we should all be exposed to all kinds of things, and we should really, truly entertain the notion, even if in the end we reject it and say, "No, that's but today, like in anything, in politics or whatever, it's almost like become I feel like this started with like George W. Bush, where it just became some kind of virtue to completely ignore everybody else and to just thrust yourself headlong into a brick wall, even if you know it's the wrong thing to do, but you just stayed your course, as if that's some kind of virtue. But I like listening to other things and entertaining thoughts, even if in the end I ultimately completely disregard them. That is Aristotle, the mark of an educated mind, to entertain a thought without accepting it.
Grimbold says, super excited for you to have G. Edward Griffin on the show again. Yes.
I'm looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to getting the confirmation, but I was talking to him just the other day, and I'm hoping that it is going to be June 12th.
Very cool.
It'll be a Thursday night.
I listened to you talk to him when I was at KetoCon. It came around that time. I remember being in the Airbnb in Texas, listening to you and G. Edward Griffin. So it was really cool.
I'm very happy to have had him on the show twice so far. But the one thing that we have not been able to do, and as long as I get a trilogy of talks in with him, I'd be happy. The one thing I have not done is any of his work on things like cancer. I mean, obviously he's known for beast system type stuff, New World Order, banking, money systems, all that stuff. But he also published a lot, not only on the basis of communism and the KGB and psychological warfare, but then also the healthcare system, and especially hidden cancer cures and all that. I don't know if that's going to be a night that if I really want to talk to him about this, and I got to, it's G. Edward Griffin, and he's a legend, and I don't want to hold back anything. I may just have to take it off. I may have to not be on YouTube that night.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be worth it for your audience to hear what he has to say about that.
No doubt. Okay, let's see here. Let's see. Two Dog Mike D says, "Hey, did you say how we reserve tickets for the meetup?" No. All I'm saying is just keep September 6th in your mind. The deposit has been put down. The venue is ours. We're working out we're working out a lot of different things, bringing sponsors into a line, just a small core of sponsors. And then everything else is just going to be opening it up. And everything else is talking to chefs and bringing on talent and calling all of our banners, all the friends that we can get over here. I would love to have as many people from on screen, off screen. I would love for people to be walking around taking pictures with King. This is the kind of shit I want happening.
I'm getting a picture with King if he's there. That's for sure.
He's gonna have the longest line. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see what happens. But you will be known. You guys will know all along the way.
Yeah.
Just very excited to announce this because we've never done a Quite Frankly meetup before, and I didn't just want it to be in a dive bar somewhere. I wanted it to be special because who knows what these look like 5 years from now and how often we're doing them. So this could be really, really great. All right. Jay Britz says, "What an all-star panel and conversation. Thank you, Frank, Jay, and Molly." Stove, thank you so much for the tip, my friend. Gino says, "A little behind on the show, but want to make sure I get this in because no one I trust more than Jay about health. Sean Ryan had Gary Brex on, who said that methylfolate is the best natural remedy for ADD. Any weight to that? Love to you and the family, Francis."
Boy, oh boy, it could be is the answer. And actually, the paper that I wrote about today on Instagram goes through pyridoxine, which is vitamin B6, folate, which is vitamin B9. B12 and homocysteine levels in ADHD versus non-ADHD. So but there are some genetics that are involved there. Methylfolate, generally speaking, is a great way to get methylation working again if that's the root cause of the ADHD. So the answer is it depends. You can try it, see if you feel better. If you feel worse, then there may be some genetics at play that have to be kind of fleshed out. But generally speaking, methylfolate is an excellent form of vitamin B9. So without knowing any more details, that's what I can say. And if you want to read more about it, I actually if you go to my Instagram, read the post, but then I linked the paper in my story, which I always do so that if people want to read the research, they can go read it. So you go to Instagram and you can go to my story and you can actually click on the link and go to the paper.
There you go. Okay. Shotzi says, "Hi, Frank and Jay, sending some Friday cheer. Have a happy weekend." That was from Quite Frankly Superchat.com. Over on Quite Frankly YouTube. Let's see here. We had a super chat goal over there. If we hit this goal, I don't know, collectively across all of the platforms, we might be getting close. Where I will do a Mother's Day weekend Q&A.
Oh,
I'll just go live from the phone soon, either on Saturday or Sunday morning. Just do a Q&A, maybe talk a little bit about some stuff and just be live for a little bit. That will be the celebration. But Meggles says, "Random question for Jay. Why does the roof of my mouth hurt when I break a fast that's 20 hours or longer, no matter what I eat? It's like a painful lemon pucker sensation. Thanks, Frank.
Whoa.
What?
I need more.
You know what? You know what, Jay?
one.
It sounds strange.
Wow.
It sounds strange to me because I don't have that sensation. But I can tell you, since doing any kind of restrictive eating, I have felt very strange sensations all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like things I never felt before. I don't know. What is that? A reset? Like, is the body going through a reset? Some night I know now when I'm mineral deficient because my calves will start like muscle twitching. I'll feel twinkling of muscle twitching.
Yep.
I'm like, oh shit, let me go
Yep.
downstairs and slug some salt water. I never had that when I was just grazing through the day and having a 10 o'clock meal.
Right. And you know, I don't know the answer to the roof of the mouth thing. I would have to ask a million more questions. As long as it goes away and it's nothing, you know, and it's not affecting the way you eat or anything like that, then I would say don't worry about it. But a lot of things can happen. I mean, you know, let me just give you one perfect example of that, like GI, because that's where a lot of people experience strange sensations. Even you have said that to me. It's like pit of your stomach kind of feeling or whatever, like emptiness. So there's something called the migrating motor complex, which was discovered, and it's essentially, to break it down, it's like a 3-phase cleanup mechanism. It's like the cleanup crew at the stadium at the end of a baseball game. They come out, they sweep the field, they put the tarp on, they do all this stuff. It's the crew that goes through your small and large intestine and actually only upregulates without food. But you have to be somewhat fasted for that to actually kick in. So you know when you get this, like the stomach growling and all that kind of stuff going on, that's usually the migrating motor complex, and it will work its way all the way through your GI tract. So it's like pulling out all kinds of things, and it's doing all kinds of amazing cleanup. But most people they hardly ever feel that, and if they do, they shut it off immediately by eating. Right? So like that whole feeling of, oh, I'm hungry, my stomach's growling, immediately people go to eat. But if you let that play out, you're actually getting an incredible cleanse. You know, people are always like, oh, I'm going to do a juice cleanse. I'm going to do this kind of cleanse.
A growling stomach is a cleansing stomach?
It's the start of the migrating motor complex kicking into gear. And there's literally 3 phases, and you know, there are plenty of papers that break it down, but it only happens in a fasted state. So that's just another really interesting, you know, GI thing when you're fasting. So you may just be unaccustomed to it. It may feel strange, but as long as, you know, there's no real negative effects, it's just uncomfortable or odd feeling, I try to tell people just to ride it out, because everyone's a little bit different when it comes to fasting.
Yeah.
I'm not talking days and days and days. You know, if you're talking like a fast that's within a day, then there's likely something else that's going on. And it's probably a good thing, because you shouldn't be able to, you know, you should be able to not eat for 24 hours, and there should be absolutely no ill effects.
Yeah, I've gotten that point, but my wall is very shortly afterwards. I've still never done, so I'm gonna have to talk to you off air about some tinkering with some things. But anyway, Kelly says, hello, sweeties. Oh, well, Molly's not here anymore, but she wants to ask Molly a question. So Kelly, I will say off the bat, because she's asking whether, you know, about how dogs, cats, if they would have benefits for the kind of the ingredients in Keto Brainz. I would say, Kelly, reach out to Molly at through her website. They're very responsive and very in tune with this show now. Wonderful relationship we have with them, and they are make themselves very available to people in this show. And they're always retweeting the show, and I'm very happy, because I'm sure I say plenty of things Molly doesn't agree with. So I don't
know though. I mean, like, what's incredible is that when I was thinking about the two of you, I only was thinking about the sort of business side of it and the product and the show, and then you realize that like there are a lot of things that are super aligned, which always just makes it a lot, you know, that much more exciting. But yeah, I don't know.
All right, Moon Bunny says, I've spent many dollars through the years on health and maintenance. Unfortunately, there's not one size fits all solution. I love you, Frank and chat. Your show modulates my neurotransmitters. No, there's not.
Yeah, so true.
There's not. I mean, I guess that's the basis of why you, Molly, and anybody else I've had on this show to talk about anything that has to do with the body and healthcare and breaking ourselves off from the system to make ourselves independent of the healthcare system and everything else. Why a big part of those conversations is always about doing the work to learn about your own body, the way that you metabolize certain things. Or I've never done any kind of genetic research, but I know Lauren is more and more into that now too.
Yeah. I mean, there are pillars. Like there are some general rules, because we're all human beings, right? With the biology. So there are certain rules, but there are a ton of nuances that have to be uncovered. And sometimes it's just through trial and error that we get there. So yeah.
Two Dogs Mike D. Oh, Mike, you just said this on Rumble. What are your thoughts on Dr. Gary Breckup? Well, we just said that, Mike. Well, I hope that I hope you got your money's worth. I'm so sorry. But I checked both. Just want to let you know so you don't double spend. Get in touch with me, Mike. I'll send you out a sample bag of coffee. Which, by the way, hold on. That's right. Paige with the Elevation Blend, Quite Frankly Elevation Blend, because it's Mother's Day. We didn't get this together soon enough, but I might as well tell you now because at least we have the weekend. But anybody that goes out and clicks through the links in the description or through the website and gets themselves some of the Quite Frankly Elevation Blend coffee, Paige is just like last year, and we will do something for Father's Day as well. Everybody who buys a bag or a mug or a combination or two, your name is going into a raffle. And then on Monday, we will be able to just generate a name, and this is what you're going to win. There's a cold brew coffee maker that is going to put it out there, and she's also going to include 2 pounds of Quite Frankly Elevation Blend coffee. So
with
that
your ugly face on the bag.
with my stupid ugly face on the bag. And that's just saying, for anybody who needed to re-up their supply over the weekend anyway, all of the purchases from now through and including Sunday gets you into a Mother's Day raffle, and then you can win this. And then Paige will let me know who won on Monday. Let's see. Yeah. And I wish I had a couple more days to put it out there. We just didn't think. We did it last year. It was great. She sent out this like a $300 coffee machine last year.
Oh,
yeah.
I love small companies like that, man, because they really do everything they can to help satisfy their customers in a way that you can only get that kind of lip service from other companies. Keto Brainz is exactly the same way. I'm sure Justin is the same way. You do whatever you can for your people.
Yes. Okay, let's see here. Lol, I'm joshing you. LOL, I'm joshing you. You should consider having Stefan Molyneux as a special guest at your event. Great show. Oh man, Stefan Molyneux. I haven't seen ever since he got taken down all over the place. And you want to talk about getting into racy territory. The thing that really got him taken down all over the place is because he would talk a lot about race and IQ.
Oh,
yeah. He talked a lot about that, and of course, he was trying to be very straight about. It wasn't like a Klan rally or anything like that. But
people don't like the.
I don't even know where he is, to be honest. And that's a guy who years ago I always was like, oh man, I'd love to get him on as a guest, and he was really ruling the roost for a while. In fact, I've seen him do a couple of really great breakdowns. He's the reason why I went out and I bought that Joe McCarthy book, Blacklisted by History. You ever read that book?
I have not, but I know that I'm pretty sure that given everything else I've had to relearn, that my thoughts on Joe McCarthy and McCarthyism is probably incorrect.
Yeah. No. It's dude.
Yeah.
It's incredible. That book, if I did book clubs for nonfiction, I would definitely do one of those books because Blacklisted by History it's about this thick, but you want to talk about, especially from with the experience that we had reading and analyzing the news throughout the whole Russiagate nonsense, with learning about the FBI, FISA, how bureaucratically, how just skeevy everything is. This is just incredible.
Yeah.
First of all, a good part of the book is actually showing you how he was right about everything, from the way that these communist front groups operated inside of the United States, where they sank their talons, and then also as their fortunes during especially things like World War II, World War I, because we're talking about international goals of doing away with national sovereignty, whether it is the goal of bringing in the League of Nations or the UN or something like that. But especially when it came to World War II, when the non-aggressions pact between Hitler and Stalin was broken there, and all of a sudden Hitler's invading Russia, They even point out how incredible how all these communist front groups here in the United States that wanted us to stay out of the war, to some degree, when Hitler and Stalin were working together out there, and or at least making some pacts that they thought wouldn't be broken. How they all changed their names and also changed their footing when Stalin needed some help, and when there's something else going on. It's crazy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So do you think that we are suffering because of the way McCarthy was sort of painted in history? Do you think what we're suffering from today is the logical extension of that time period, never really truly rooting out,
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I hate to say it because
it's like a connector. There's no like,
what it is?
Start over again. It's the same.
The thing that gets me, Jay, is this, and I think there are people out there that can articulate it better. And I'm still asking questions, and I'm still wrestling with myself on certain things, because when it comes to war, whether it be even the war between the states here, you're talking about a soldier, the average soldier in a war. Valor can be reserved for all sides of a war. You're talking about everyday people who don't have a stake in the government. They don't have any decision-making power.
Right. But
all of a sudden they find themselves in a live or die situation. They're trying to protect the guy next to them. They're trying to stay alive. They want to go home. Whatever the national interests are for anybody going to war, really for the individual people in the battlefield, they're all, I'm pretty sure not all of them are thinking about the red, white, and blue when they're getting shot at. They're thinking about, I got to get the fuck out of here. So I think about the valor of our grandparents, our great grandparents. But when I think about who won the war, and what did we win? Is this our prize?
Right.
This cesspool of degeneracy and bullshit and financial boondoggling. What did we win?
Yeah.
And everybody, the default, I heard Piers Morgan say this a couple of months ago, and it just made me laugh to myself, because it's the default of every fucking, it's just for anybody who doesn't think about anything and it doesn't allow themselves, like Aristotle, to consider.
Yeah.
Is, well, what did we win? We're not speaking German these days. Like, oh, really? Is that it? It's linguistic preservation? Is it linguistic? You just wanted to preserve the language? Are you serious? You don't even want to say that English is the official language of the United States.
That guy's so embarrassing.
Seriously, man. Like, what did we fucking win?
Mid-level intellect, yeah.
I mean, and perhaps you can say in the late 1940s, in the 50s, you had this Pax Romana area, even though the Korean War starts. So it's the first real UN war. And then you have the Red Scare. And at that point, in the 50s, there's Tail Gunner Joe, right. Joe McCarthy, he's demeaned by being named Tail Gunner Joe and all that stuff, because he was a tail gunner in the war, and that's supposed to be, and he dies from the stress, essentially, if you want to call it that. And everything has been, he's been validated on everything, including in the early 1990s, after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the fall of the USSR, and we got the Venona Papers. You remember the Venona Papers?
Yes.
I mean, it's like everybody that they said we shouldn't be worried about. We had all of their we had their KGB code names right there in the Venona Papers. Like, here are their code names.
Be very worried.
Oh man, it's all over the place.
I mean, just remind you of today. The people that speak the truth and the way they're demonized, and just this sort of very remedial way that we're taught history, and even just McCarthyism in general. I mean, I've told this story before a million times, but like, what got me going on the Kennedy assassination was the ridiculous way that we were taught the Kennedy assassination. It was literally like a paragraph in a chapter of a history book. Lee Harvey Oswald, John F. Kennedy. Okay, moving on. And you're like, whoa. There's way more to this story. And that goes back to let's wrap it in a nutshell. We don't educate anybody anymore, which is, I think, why this sort of this pervasive way of being in this country right now is allowed to continue to manifest and pick up steam, because there's never an entry point where we can insert the nuance and the logic. And if we don't do that when they're young, it's really a lot harder to change people's hearts and minds when they're older and they've just got way too much time invested in the belief system that has made them who they are. And I always look upon new information as an opportunity to rebuild something in the face of that new information. But a lot of people don't look at it that way. I guess because I'm trained from the scientific perspective to always welcome new information, I don't have a problem with it, but I understand that it shatters some people's worldview. Like they can't accept, like I said, if Trump saved their child from a burning building, they would blame Trump for putting firefighters out of business. Like that's the mentality of some people who just cannot accept new information when exposed to it. And it blows me away.
There's a lot more I want to read about World War II because I just want more.
Yeah.
I want more on it because, when obviously it was the last declared war.
Yep.
So it's something to be said about that, but there's so much.
Yeah,
there's so much. And Blacklisted by History is a great book. So I mean, this all started with Stefan Molyneux.
Yeah.
Somebody bringing it up, and that's how I found that book because he did a really when it came to the shenanigans of the FBI about just the hide the ball trick with you destroy evidence here, evidence got lost here. This is an asset. This is not an asset of ours. Just hiding the ball and just working your craft in contravention of any kind of, or I would say in counter to any kind of stated goal for the Bureau's existence, like to be an all-American law enforcement unit and not a self-perpetuating criminal organization in and of itself.
Yeah.
It's just
in that book, did they cover at all the maybe off topic from it, but did they cover Prescott Bush and the Union Bank and funding both sides of World War II at all? Any of that kind of stuff?
What you should look into for that, I would start reading. I have all of his pamphlets from the 1960s. Myron Fagan. Myron Fagan. He has for anybody who wants to be introduced to him, you can go listen to him. It's uploaded all over the place. I actually have it in the Interesting Shite playlist on YouTube. But there's like a 2-hour recording from 1968 or something like that, where he's talking about the Illuminati and specifically the CFR. But when he talks about the Illuminati, he's talking about Adam Weishaupt. Mm-hmm. He's going all the way back to the Bavarian Illuminati, all of that. We're talking about that. So he goes all the way back to the 18th century, and then he comes up through World War I, World War II, League of Nations, the heroes of the time that stopped things. What's his name? James Cabot, the senator from Vermont. Is that the senator from Vermont that torpedoed the League of Nations after World War I?
Sounds familiar.
Anyway, things like that might have been Cabot. I got to look. Either way, I got all of his, because he talks about in this recording from the 60s. You can write here and here and send $1.25 and you can get my whatever. I said, where are those pamphlets? Yeah. I looked all over the place, and they were reprinted and preserved in a box for like $300 on Amazon about 6 years ago. Grab those shits. They are gold. They are gold, dude.
Wow.
And it's like pamphlets on, the first times anti-Semitism was used as a political cudgel. It's really great stuff. So I would look into Myron Fagan, but I would also go and read that book, The Killing of Uncle Sam.
Yeah. I've had that recommended to me multiple times.
You must.
Yeah.
You must. And the guy, I think Paul Williams, it was co-written by two people, and Williams is one of them. He's the guy who also wrote the book on Operation Gladio. And Gladio's in there, but Williams wrote a book dedicated to just Gladio. So these are books that are necessary.
Yeah. That
you should actually reread every so often. I'm due to read them all.
Yeah.
Again.
I mean, that's our job. You're right. It's like as much as I do here for the audience, because I'm always reading scientific research, we have to relearn a lot of things because most of what we were taught is incorrect, incomplete, wrong, just to varying degrees. So, that stuff is always fascinating to me. And again, uncovering a lot of that stuff, just looking at the Kennedy assassination, going back to the funding of both sides of the war. And I believe Prescott Bush was even sanctioned in some way for that, but FDR didn't want to make a big deal out of the whole thing. So I think Prescott Bush had something to do with starting the USO, and then it ended up, how can you prosecute a guy who's fighting for our soldiers and all that kind of stuff. So it's all very interesting.
Here's the thing. It's because Fagan has a very interesting take on Adolf Hitler, who he was, and how he, in a great way, was a dupe.
Yes. I've read pieces of some of that. Yeah.
But at the same time, he doesn't, he sees World War II as an illegitimate war that was worked from both sides. But, and then you even get into like 9/11 is a rich man, the rich man's trick.
Right.
The way that he paints people like Henry Ford is nothing but demonic.
Yeah.
And then I look at other people say, no. Henry Ford knew what was, especially the communist Bolshevik threat that was facing the world. Henry Ford actually knew what was up. A lot of people you're never going to get like, everybody agrees on one damn thing. A lot of people are split on Walt Disney.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Razor Fist did a couple of great dives onto Walt Disney, and he imparts a lot of praise on him as being an all-American guy, and that the one side accusing him of being anti this or racist or a Semite or an anti-Semite, whatever the hell it is. There's always something. Just like there's multiple sides to look at Michael Jackson as an individual.
I know. Even in recent history, so to think about it at a time before we even lived is so challenging.
Very.
It's so challenging.
Very. And that's, and once you feel like you've read enough, you have to read more. And then you have to reread it with new context that you get from older books. I don't know, man, but that's
why the work of a show like this is never done, and it will never be done. And you should always be seeking out new information. I mean, people think that I stick to what I know in science and nutrition and health, and that's not true. I'm constantly challenging my ideas, experimenting on myself and reading new research, because I don't want to be the person who thinks the way they did. I look at doctors who practice the way they did when they got out of medical school 40 years ago as failures in a lot of ways, because how much has changed and you refuse to keep up with the times. And so I never want to be that person. So I go out of my way to do that, but there's only enough time in the day, and I feel like I'm already running out of it. So some of the other areas of interest for me, they end up falling by the wayside, which kind of sucks. Yeah. But that's why I watch your show, because I'll get like a snippet of it in a 2-hour show if you have a really interesting conversation with somebody, and at least I feel like I've scratched the itch a little bit.
A little, yeah. Or if not more than a little, or whatever the hell it is. If you walk away with something written down in a Post-it note that you want to go look a little bit deeper into, that's a good thing too. And then tell me what you find, because that's it. Okay, well, on Rumble, Cool Frog rated the stream. Thank you so much, Cool Frog.
Oh, who's that?
I don't know. A smaller channel, but I'm really appreciative of it. Thank you so much. Icebox says Timothy Alberino might be a cat man, but Jay might be a vampire with those sexy fangs.
Man, I haven't tell you the story. I probably didn't tell you. What time is it?
Are you what? Are you a vampire?
No. But I had a weird experience in college. In my undergrad, I was in Boston. I was at I was eating at like a sub shop for lunch. Yeah, this was back then. And the guy. So just picture this: there's a long line at the sub shop. In the middle is Mass Ave, and if you know anything about Boston, it's Mass Ave, high noon, in a sub shop. So it's like the line's practically out the door, and I'm just standing in the middle of the line, and the guy behind the counter goes, "Hey, you, come here," and I have no idea that he's talking to me. And so I don't go anywhere, and he goes, "You, come here." I'm like, "Me?" So I walk up. I think I'm in trouble. I don't know. I haven't done anything. And he goes, "What do you want?" And I'm looking at the line going, "Why would you pull me up to the front of the line?" And anyway, I give him my order. I'm afraid I'm going to get, kind of get the dirty looks from the people in line. Anyway, I sit down at the sub shop and I'm eating my lunch. That same guy all of a sudden comes over from behind me, sits down with his tray, and he's like, Can I sit and eat with you?" And I was like, "Sure." And I'm like, "What the hell's going on here?" The guy goes, "Can I ask you a question?" I'm like, "This is just bizarre." But I'm like, it's broad daylight. I'm like, whatever, He goes, "Are you a vampire?" I was like, "What the hell is going on here?" He goes, "Well, the dark hair, dressed in black, he's like, not Hollywood vampire." And he just goes through like the historical point of view of vampirism. And like, let me guess, you like this, this, and this. And he was actually very accurate. And I was like, yeah, but I'm not I don't even know what you're talking about, man. But he called me up to the line because he wanted to have that conversation.
Is the owner?
No, just a random worker. I thought he was hitting on me, to be honest, but he didn't. He was just genuinely interested in me and if I was a vampire. One of the weirdest things that ever happened to me. He's like, you like, silver jewelry, you like, you like black, you're dark hair, you like, the night, you're a night owl, all this stuff. And he goes through a bunch of other things. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much me, but I'm also a musician who goes to Berkeley. So, I mean, you could probably guess all those things anyway. The official color was black of the school, it's like, that was a weird story. And he didn't hit on me. He just wanted to talk to me about being a vampire. So I just think it's funny that somebody said that. I haven't heard that in quite a while.
Well, I haven't heard that in quite a while.
Haven't been called a vampire in a while. So whoever said that, thank you. It's funny.
Wow,
Just
bro.
brought that story back up.
Are you sure? You haven't, how do you react around garlic?
I love garlic.
Okay, so
yeah, which is what ruins it. It's like
that's a good thing.
But they, that's the Hollywood vampire. Apparently, there's a whole other school of vampiristic, if that's a word, thought.
Well, there's Blade,
and I don't. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what he was talking about, man. It was weird. But I'm glad that I didn't. I'm glad that I went.
Blade Gulinello.
No, that's not the name.
Blade Gulinello. Oh my gosh. Well, there you have it.
Yeah.
It's funny because when Lauren and I joke about you, about the whole idea of, Jay had to stay the night, and we offered him. We offered him to stay on the couch in the living room for something, and then having to come downstairs to go to the kitchen overnight, and just finding you sleeping in like almost like vampire-like situations where your eyes are open or you're standing up perfectly, sitting up straight.
Do you guys have an inversion table I can hang from?
I do. I have an inversion table.
Gonna hook my ankles in that. I'll be good for the night.
Yeah, all of you hold like this. Oh man, like Michael Keaton.
Yeah. Oh, that was funny.
Damn, bro.
I hadn't thought about that story in years.
Well,
that's just funny how your life works like that.
Thank you for that icebox.
Yeah,
you brought back good memories.
Good memories.
There. All right, all right. Let's see here. And then Two Dogs says, no. The other super chat I sent on Rumble was about reservations. Reservations about the methylfolate.
Oh, yeah. Again, very, very individual. But again, read that post that I wrote on Instagram and read that paper. It's very, very interesting about B vitamins and homocysteine, specifically the amino acid, and what it could mean for ADHD.
Okay. All right, great. And then over on quite frankly superchat.com, on Rumble, on Pilled. Jeez. Let's see here. Brewbark says, I'd like to hear Jay's thoughts on shrooms. We'll do that some other time. Cave Toad says, for Friday and the Franklies, don't forget to ask about methylene blue. Oh, God.
I was listening the other night when you got like bombarded with, and the whole show got taken over by methylene blue. We'll do that on an episode because it actually deserves a little bit of a deep dive because a few of your callers, I think, got it right. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear about it too. I just couldn't believe that.
It was funny.
Everything that I had done prior to that little comment went right out the window.
I had a 1 hour meeting during your show. So like I had to pause the show and then I went into my meeting and I came out, and whenever that happens on Rumble specifically, obviously when you end the stream, I can't watch anymore. I have to go back to the beginning. And you were in the middle of that whole methylene blue thing when I cut out, and I was like, damn, I gotta go back and rewind it because it was really funny how everyone just kept calling about it.
It's crazy. Cave Toad, I'm sorry. A Video Demon Slayer said, haven't dropped any love here for far too long. So hello from the lurkers. What's going on, Video Demon Slayer? That's great to see you out there. I love all my friends over there on Pilled. Cave Toad says, sorry to say, but in general, evolution and Darwinism is complete fraud science.
No, not capital E evolution. We're talking about evolutionary biology, adaptation, that kind of stuff. There's a big difference. Like I understand whenever I usually say that on the show because I want to differentiate between the two. I'm not talking about like the origin of the species. I'm talking about the fact that we know the human physiology evolves based on its environmental influences.
You're talking about pressures.
Yes.
Yes.
Selective pressures. Yeah.
Selective pressures. Yeah. Oh, hey, it sounds like Mollee feels the same way too, because the comment she said tonight, she said, what are the species is a couple 100,000 years old? Were they exactly the same? Well, I don't know. Maybe we lost a tail along the way. Who knows?
But I always try to differentiate because people always confuse those two. But there is a difference between evolution and capital E evolution. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Cave Toad says, that said, why do people look older back then? Dang. Occam's razor was more nutrition. People were outside doing stuff, less work, better food, less preservatives, sitting on your ass less sitting on your ass, and I hate this show. Well,
Yeah, but then wouldn't that make them look younger?
it would make them look younger.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking. Same there too. I'm like, okay, well, if the common thing here is that we criticize so much more that is readily available to people in society. Yes, we are. Yes, we're better providing for people who, like you said, the poor in this country do not starve. But at the same time, the quality of food that everybody eats is down significantly. The guidance that people have down significantly. It's all government run, whatever. So if that's our biggest modern day complaint, then wouldn't it be true that we're also saying that things were better back then? And if that's the case, then why do some 17-year-old men look like they're 55-year-old coal miners? And
yeah, I really do think we kind of hit on all the big ones that I think it is with what Mollee said about stress and the reproductive delay and the telomeres and the whole. I think it's a variety of things.
Yeah,
the responsibility.
Well, here we go. Save the last two. Love bomb. Happy and blessed Mother's Day to all of the moms. One love, Lynn. Thank you. And please read the bulletin. I think you guys are going to like it, especially that piece on my mom. Let's see. And then Cave Toad just dropped an EMP. What is he doing? You're killing me over here, man. Thank you. Cave Toad says Jay has no reflection in the window. Just saying.
Cave Toad.
Jay, turn around.
No.
Everybody's looking at you in the window.
No.
Just turn. Hold on. Then move your head. Oh my God. Oh my God. It's true.
My secret has been revealed.
Oh God.
You guys still want to come in September to meet me?
I'm afraid to walk out of the. I feel like I have to keep this thing rolling right now. Anyway.
Frank and I do walk out of this building alone.
Yeah, I know. This is gonna be a dicey one tonight. All right, last one. Road Trip says Jay's vampirism explains the carnivore diet. Oh. Yes, I know. All right.
It really is all lining up, isn't it?
Damn. Well, Jay, if as one thing with you goes out the window, people trying to figure out
something else comes in.
What does that letter mean, Jay? And now this is not going away.
I kind of like it. I mean, I feel like I bring even more to the show than I feel like I bring. It's like but this is the beauty of your audience. They're so engaged that, you show up on a show, you do it, you're out, you're done, and no one even thinks about you anymore. And this audience, they put a lot of thought into it. I love it.
Oh, Timothy, yeah. There's tens of thousands of people out there who see Timothy Alberino completely different from the other millions who follow him.
I love that.
It's just
so great.
It's crazy. So now, you've just been
vampirized.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, everybody. Fantastic show tonight. I learned a lot. Those are the shows I love the most. I have leftovers, and I guess I'll save it for next time. Jay, just for a little bit. There was an AI, a very scary article about AI and how it has completely taken over academia, where there's a cheating epidemic in college that is incredible. Yeah. Everybody is using AI to cheat their way through college, and it is essentially what many professors are saying is it's passing absolutely illiterate people into degrees.
Good God. Yeah.
So of varied degrees. I mean, some of them are just ridiculous. And I mean, there's a lot of uselessness in modern day college education as it is, but the ones of great consequence.
Yeah. If it passes them through medical school, we got a problem.
So I'm gonna keep this on ice for the next time we talk because it's a good one.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, have a great one. I will see you. Actually, you know what? I'm going to be doing you. I got enough support from you guys over the course of the show from several platforms. We'll do a Mother's Day Q&A.
Nice job, everybody.
It'll be from the handheld. It'll probably be at home at either Saturday afternoon or Sunday morning or something like that. And I hope you all just keep your notifications on and you'll see me. I'll try out the new Rumble app, which supposedly will allow you to go live from Rumble, YouTube, X, Twitter.
Yeah. Rumble Studio, right?
Rumble Studio.
Yeah.
It's almost like Restream. Mm-hmm. For your phone.
Yeah.
I got in touch with my friend at Rumble. I said, is this for real? How come I never even heard this came out? So I'm going to test that out because maybe we can, I hope that they combine all the chats because it's on a phone. I can't see anything.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, Rumble's really been expanding. That's why I, like I said, that's why I chose to I never even started a YouTube channel. I just went right to Rumble because I was like, you know what? Do it someplace with freedom and where people actually respond. I mean, from what I hear, they're getting a lot of feedback and they're instituting changes based on the feedback of their users, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Well,
so, good for them.
I'll try bring everybody along for the ride. Yeah. Wherever you watch, thank you. And leave us a like. Leave us a comment if you're watching after the fact. Comments and likes and shares. Become a sponsor of the show. Read the bulletin and enjoy your weekend. We will see you soon, and happy Mother's Day. Good night.
I'll catch you on the flip side.